Hi, everybody. It's Margie Meacham, and this is another issue of the Brain Matters podcast. And today we have Will Thalheimer with us. He is the president of Work Learning Research, and he's a thought leader in bringing evidence-based information to our practice as learning professionals. So, Will, thank you so much for coming today.
I'm delighted to be here, Margie.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about your work and what you do at Work Learning Research?
Sure. Work Learning Research is my consulting practice, and it's not a 10,000-person consultancy. It's basically me, one person. Sometimes I partner on big projects with other folks, but for the most part, it's me. And I've been doing this for 17 years. I started out trying to bridge the gap between the research side and the practice side. And every year, or almost every year, I read over 200 articles from the scientific referee journals on learning, memory, and instruction, and I do what's called research translation. So I try to take that jargony, complex, theoretical information and make it practical for people like instructional designers, trainers, teachers, e-learning developers, learning executives, etc. Now, the research in our field doesn't pay that well, so I make my living doing other things. Doing workshops, keynote addresses, consulting. I do what I call learning audits, where I go in and I'll research benchmark a learning intervention, comparing it to the research-based best practices, and that's actually a lot of fun. So that's it in a nutshell. That's what I do.
That's great. You know, actually, you and I have a lot in common because I'm basically just me, and I share your interest in bridging that gap between the research and the practice, which is one of the reasons why I asked you to join us today, because you and I are both members of something called the Debunkers Club, and you are the founder, and I wanted you to talk to my listeners a little bit about what that is and what we're trying to do there.
Oh, great. Well, the Debunker Club is fairly new. It's about maybe 4 months old now, and it really has evolved for me over a long period of time in the sense that it's been sort of a long-term interest in mine of, you know, when I see something that is put out there as the truth, which I know based on looking at the scientific research that it's not the truth, I get a little upset and I want to go share that information. And the first thing I debunked, which was probably 12 years ago now, was the old saw about people who remember 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, 30% of what they see, etc. And that information was floating around the field, so I wrote a blog post on it. It's still, I think, my most popular blog post. People come from all over the world. You know, like maybe 100 or 200 people a day come to that web page and take a look at that. So anyway, I've been doing this for a while. And, you know, talking with other people and seeing what's out there and seeing this misinformation, and people contact me now and say, Will, I found this thing and it's terrible, and can you help debunk it? So finally I said, oh, you know, we ought to start a group, because clearly those of us who are individuals who are out there debunking stuff, you know, we're not making much of a dent. You know, there's still a lot of bad information that's floating around the learning field. So I decided to use the power of community, the power of the web, and invited people to join me in this debunking quest. Put up a website, the Debunker Club, Debunker.club. You can go to and join us if you like. We now have over 300 members from every continent except Antarctica, and we try to debunk some of the misinformation that's out there.
And that's great. And you also target a specific topic to really focus member efforts, right? So on a monthly basis?
Yeah, occasionally, not every month, because, you know, this is an all volunteer effort, and I don't want people to get burned out. But For example, just this last June, we targeted learning styles. It's one of the most prolific sources of misinformation in the learning field. It's been out there for probably 10 years now, but the scientific research shows that taking learning styles into account when you're designing learning has no appreciable benefit to the effectiveness of the learning program, and it may have some detrimental effects depending on how you use it. So, yeah, we did previously we looked at that people remember 10%, 20%, 30%, and also the bastardizations of Dale's cone of experience. Dale had created a cone back in the 1940s, 1950s, and people have taken his cone and added those numbers to it, and that is all over the internet as well. I had been involved in doing some research that got published in the scientific referee journal Educational Technology on the genesis of that misinformation. And previously I had traced it back to 1967 to an employee of the Mobil Oil Company, but these academic researchers that I partner with, who did most of the work on this really, they traced it back to 1914 and 1922, that misinformation. So this misinformation came out before the internet, but the internet has accelerated the spread of some of these misconceptions and myths in learning. It's very dangerous, and we need to try to stamp these things out because it's hurting our learners, it's hurting our learning designs, it's hurting our organizations, and it really is sort of an embarrassment for the field and hurts all of us.
I agree. And yet, I can understand the seductiveness of some of these myths because it packages, there seems to be a pattern that every one of them has sort of oversimplified the very complex process of learning and then packaged it in a way that makes it really easy to understand. It generates products that people can sell, surveys and things like that. And so you can understand the attraction. And now with the internet, someone sees it on the internet, it's very easy for them to assume it's true. So, we're kind of the boy plugging the dike, and another hole comes out somewhere else. So it's a real challenge to stay ahead of that.
It is a challenge, and it's interesting because these misinformation infects the general population, but it also affects those of us in the learning field, people that have advanced degrees, people that are around other people, around other professionals, and yet you're absolutely right, we get sucked in by this misinformation, and, it's a sort of an easy out. And, what I always recommend to folks is, be skeptical. Number one, be skeptical. That's what researchers do or should do. And that's what we, as instructional designers, as trainers, as e-learning developers, we need to be skeptical as well. When we see some information, we have to think about what's the source of it. Is it the source validated? Is the source replicated? In other words, is it true? Has it been proven true in other experiments, other research, other practices? If we're not skeptical, we're going to be sucked in by this. I'll give you an example. We were debunking the learning styles thing, and during that same month, this guy, this was not the learning styles, this was going back to the people who remember 10%, 20%, 30%, but he had created a beautiful visual rendition of Dale's cone with the numbers depicted there, and he put it out, and he got 223 retweets. So that misinformation then went to 223 other people, and they pass it on to other people, so that whole ripple effect. So those of us in the field, we have to be very dedicated and sort of passionate and persevere in debunking this misinformation.
Well, how can someone get involved if they'd like to join the Debunker Club? What's the process?
Very simple. Just go to Debunker.club. And on the very front page, you can see a application. Fill out the application, decide there's certain requirements, basically some statements that you have to agree to, be proactive in debunking information, and just sign it up, and we'll take a look at your application, and you'll probably be accepted, and we'd love to have you join us.
Okay, great. And I would love to see more colleagues with us as well. I'd also encourage people to follow me and Will on Twitter, and you have the websites handy that you can get in touch with us, because we're both very committed to making sure that we don't generate new myths as well. Now that we're learning so much about neuroscience, we're in a very dangerous period of time. And I wonder if you agree with me on that, Will, that the danger of everyone so eager now to take information and do something with it, as we're learning about the brain, that it's real easy to jump to conclusions that might not be founded in the research.
Oh, Margie, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one of my new pet peeves is, there's so many vendors out there and so much misinformation about, this new neuroscience research will show you this and do that, and, shine your shoes and clean your clothes. It is just, it's a maelstrom of potential for misinformation. In fact, there's been some studies that show that when you use the word brain science or neuroscience, that people are more likely to believe you. If that's true, then we have to be, double our skepticism. We have to be vigilant, but we also have to realize that there's a lot of opportunity out there to have the wool pulled over our eyes and to see things that we might fall into, sort of getting some biased information.
I agree. And as somebody who is really focused on applying neuroscience to learning and performance, I try to stay really vigilant on that and to always quote the source when I'm telling people what we do. So, as a matter of fact, I've got
we need that.
Yeah.
That to be done. I saw John Medina, the author of Brain Rules, at a keynote a couple weeks ago, and he very upfront in the beginning said, you need to be skeptical of some of these claims. And when I had lunch with him there, he reiterated that point as well. He said, just like you said, Margie, there's a lot of sort of energy around neuroscience and brain science. You go to any conference now, and those are some of the most popular sessions. And it's true in the education field as well, that some of this neuroscience stuff has been taken the wrong way, taken too far, generalized too far. So I'm glad there's folks out there like you that are, telling us the right stuff to do. So that's great.
Well, thank you. So tell me, Will, what are you most excited about right now that you're working on?
Well, it'd have to be my new book that's coming out. It's called Performance Focused Smile Sheets, A Radical Rethinking of a Dangerous Art Form. And it's gone through the editorial process. The galleys have been okayed. I'm doing a Kickstarter campaign starting very soon. Probably by the time this comes out, people will be able to go and to pledge and get a copy of the book before it officially comes out by making a contribution through Kickstarter. I really, the smile sheets don't seem very sexy, but they're one of the most important leverage points in our field. We get really bad information from our traditional smile sheets. That sort of gives us bad feedback, which makes our decision-making process on how to improve our learning, creates a lot of bad decision-making, so we don't always improve what we're doing. And, I think the traditional smile sheet's a real danger. And fortunately, There are some research-based ways that we can make it better, and I've laid those out in the book. I talk about the problems with traditional smile sheets, a different way to do them, and a way to sell them as well, a way to make sure that your stakeholders buy into the new benefits of the new approach. Very excited about that. The book should be out in September, October, and it's been a long time. I've been working on a big book for 17 years, and it's still 5 years in the future until that gets done. So I decided to start publishing shorter books, and this is the first one, and I'm very excited about it.
Well, congratulations on that. And when it comes out, I'd love to have you back and we can talk about the book.
Oh, I'd love to talk about it.
Okay. Well, everybody, we're going to wrap it up for today. You have been listening to Will Thalheimer and me, and we're talking about debunking dangerous myths in the learning profession. You'll be able to find more information on my website and on the Debunker Club, and I really encourage everybody to join in and help us. And thank you very much, Will. We will be talking with you again soon.
It's been my pleasure, Margie. Thanks so much.